Welcome to Leominster Access Television and Neighborhood Snapshot. My name is Bob Sardelli. I am a member of the Leominster Historical Commission. Today we welcome to Neighborhood Snapshot Mr. Satimio Babe Palekia, a fine gentleman who has made a significant contribution to the development of the city of Leominster, and incidentally, but not incidentally, a man who is very much interested in history and is a director, one of the directors of the Leominster Historical Society, a very fine organization. The section of the city in focus today is the South End. Welcome, Babe. Babe, just before we get into my asking you some questions, where, for the people new to Leominster, the South End is where?
I would say it started at where the Fallbrook River is, next to El Camino.
Next to El Camino.
And goes out to the Sterling Line.
So Route 12 from
Route 12.
El Camino restaurant, along the Manja Mile there, right, all the way south to the Sterling Line.
Correct.
And Babe, you've lived in Leominster all your life. You've been a lifelong resident of Leominster. You've gone to other sections of the country, service in the Army. When were you, for the residents of Leominster, so they know the era that we're talking about, when were you born?
I was born on January 21st, 1922, up in Lincoln Terrace.
So you are 83 years old.
83 years old.
And you're doing very well.
Well, not every day, but
you're
pretty
doing
good.
well. Yes. On Lincoln Terrace, which is another section of the neighborhood, we've done a neighborhood snapshot on that area of the Leominster too, that neighborhood. So you were a child growing up you were born before the Depression, but you spent your young days and your youth during the Depression.
Right, exactly.
During the Depression area.
Depression. In fact, it was the Depression was quite bad for the family. My father lost everything that he had successfully built prior to the Depression.
What had he built up?
Well, for example, he was a contractor. He had the contract for doing all the concrete work at the Leominster Post Office. He built a Main Street garage, which was quite a modern garage for that time, and numerous houses and etc. You know, all types of construction.
And was he born in America, or did
No, he was born in Italy. He came here in 1906.
1906, an immigrant.
Right.
And what?
No money.
No money.
Couldn't speak the language, and no job.
And no job. What was one of, now, was he married at that time? Or?
He was married. They had 3 children.
3 children. Did those 3 children and your mom come over with him? Or?
Not at that time. They came over in 1909.
1909.
3 years later.
So when he first got here, he had no job, no money. What was one of his first jobs? I mean, what did he...
One of his first jobs was working on a factory on Whitney Street, polishing buttons and combs and so forth. And surprisingly, recently I picked up a book on Commonwealth, Massachusetts, of industry and places, and they described that job in Leominster, Mass. As a dirty job, freeze in the winter, hot in the summer, all dust, windows covered with dust and so forth. And that was his first job. Polishing the... Right.
But being, and I think maybe this is where you get some of your business sharpness and your business ingenuity. What did he, in our little conversation earlier, the stuff that he polished with, did he turn that into a...
Well, actually, right after that, he bought a horse and wagon, and he picked up ashes from people's cellar, 10 cents a barrel to pick it up.
Ashes from the furnace?
From the furnace, coal ashes.
Coal ashes.
And he set up a screening plant, which is a plant that screens it down to the fineness of that the water would not go through that particular screen, but the ashes would. And he sold it to the industry that he started off with.
To polish the plastic.
Yep.
So he was very, very ingenious. A lot of ideas, and later on in the interview, we're going to see that I think that's where you got your business acumen,
well,
sharpness.
Probably, yes.
You know? What you were just going to say, add
I
something
was
else.
saying, surprising part that when he was screening his ashes during the Depression, quite a few people up on Lincoln Terrace would pick up the coal that wasn't burned and kept a lot of families warm.
Because it was
Yep.
it was a hard time.
Yep,
It was-
yep.
Now, your family, eventually your mom, he brought your mom and the other children
Three
over
children.
here, 3 children at that time, and you were located on Lincoln Terrace.
Right?
And the family grew, and how there eventually were how many children?
Total of 11 children.
11 children. And settimio is, what does that mean in Italian?
Well, it's 7 is what
Seven.
it means. So I was a 7th son in rotate. All no girls in between.
No
you know,
girls in
7
between.
children,
How did you get your nickname Babe?
yep. Being the youngest.
The
so-
youngest
My sister,
son.
my older sister, called me Babe, and that stuck
That
for the
name stuck, and that's
83 years.
83 years. What was it like living on the terrace, trying to feed? How did your parents feed? Your mom was at home, and she
Yep.
was a homemaker, and your
Right.
dad was an enterprising businessman, and working very hard. With 11 children, I'll bet the kids worked, each had their chores.
Yep. Of course, by that time when I was growing up, quite a few of them were married and were out of the family.
Out of the
you know.
family.
Yeah.
How did the family feed itself? As did many families in that time. How did you?
Well, they were great for their gardens, and then there were some chickens. I got the eggs from the chickens that we had, and everybody up on Lincoln Terrace would raise a pig during that era, and that, that kept them going and so forth.
And you slaughtered the pig, and you had
Yeah.
the chickens. Any rabbits?
No rabbits.
No rabbits. Garden, grapevines.
You had the large grapevine. That, of course, they used that to make their wine.
Yeah. And that wasn't just the terrace that was doing that. It was throughout Leominster, I'm sure. They were growing their own. People were growing their own food, and because you had to make ends meet. A lot of canning, I'll bet. A lot of
All up
preserving.
Lincoln Terrace, they did canning, and surprising part, Lincoln Terrace was really one person took care of the other, and they would cooperate in helping, and from canning and doing whatever chores were necessary.
So there wasn't a lot of going to the daily trips to the supermarket. There weren't any supermarkets then.
No.
That was a thing that was way in the future, unheard of.
Yeah. But what they did up on
Unimagined.
Lincoln, But what they did up on Lincoln Terrace, they just started a co-op grocery store where they got a big discount on their foods and so forth, and that helped out quite a bit.
What about, how did kids there, as you were growing up, how did kids entertain themselves? What'd you do for fun?
Well,
Today everything is organized pretty
surprising, in other words, it's in the summertime we'd go down what was a spare grass field and play baseball if the owner of the baseball showed up, otherwise we didn't. And in the winter we had the Miller Hill that everybody would slide down, and there was a little pond down below where they would go skating. And that was quite a thing on that.
So the kids managed to entertain themselves.
With limited sources, they managed to have a good
fun.
time. Right.
Now, I imagine that the kids in those days, especially during the Depression, they had to work.
We went to work, yes.
What were some of your early jobs that you remember?
Well, the first job as far as earning was with the family. That was I did brickwork, did chimneys, and so forth, and or whatever came up to do in construction.
So you worked in construction. How did you were fortunate in that in the days when there weren't too many cars around, and people did a lot of walking or maybe bicycle riding, or the trolleys. Were the trolleys operating
Yes.
then? But you were able to drive a truck around. How did that
drove
happen?
the truck around because that was my form of transportation. In fact, at that time in 36, 37, and 38, I was a paper boy, and I delivered papers with the truck. And do it early enough to get back for 8 o'clock to go to work, with my father.
Construction. Was this your father's business truck for the construction business?
At that time, well, even whatever you need the trucks to get on the construction site, whatever necessary. You know.
So you were just something that we take for granted today. Getting a license, you know, you have to go through. Or what about did people have to get a driver's license in those days? How did one go about getting a driver's license? You had to.
Well, you had to study the book for the different questions that they ask you. And then you went to Fitchburg. The registry was on Water Street at that time, and you went out with the inspector, and if you passed what he ordered you to do, then you got your license.
So that's still basically the same procedure.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's one thing that hasn't changed. Hasn't changed so much. What about, before we get into later when you started to develop the south side of Leominster, the south end, what about things such as the difference today? We have lots of technology, things we take for granted, cell phones, TV, all these things. Just you can tick off a list of so many things we enjoy today. But what about in those days? It was so different, right? Radio.
Well, we had the radio. That was a great thing. The radio was everybody. In fact, one of the things I remember radio mostly was when Lou Little won the game at the Rose Bowl, and he said, "Hello there, back in Leominster." And up Lincoln Terrace, he being Italian boy, that was, for the next several days, that was quite a thing.
Yes, because his Americanized name was Little, but wasn't it?
Piccirilli, I think it was.
Piccirilli, right, which means small. And he grew up, I guess he lived not far from the LATV studios on, I think there was a connection between that and in town.
So, right.
So time went on, and you got older, and you then left the terrace because World War II came.
Uncle Sam wanted us.
Uncle Sam wanted you. And you got into the Army. You were in the U.S. Army. And tell us a little bit about that, because you were in the thick of things. You were 312 days on the line.
302 days.
302 days on the line. Now, on the line means what?
We're actively fighting.
Actively fighting.
We never had any, like the divisions have. We were heavy artillery, and we supported the different divisions, armored division and whatnot. So then one would go, they would go on furlough, and we would move to another division. So our particular unit, actually we represented 3 different armies that we participated
in Europe, and there was a European theater.
And probably a dozen divisions and armored divisions. So we were constantly on the go.
On the go.
And particularly we got the 5 battle stars of the European theater of operation. Which was, there was only 5 there.
Wow.
We got on the beachhead on D+20.
Normandy,
and with our heavy guns, and we only owned 6 miles of the invasion there. That it was quite rough there. In fact, that's where our first accident, where I lost 2 close friends at that time. In fact, one of the boys from Leominster, Larry Pellegrini, got shot up that day from incoming artillery.
Well, we owe you, we the people of today owe you and all the other veterans for what we enjoyed today. Thank you very much, babe. You know, we can't thank veterans enough.
Right. But it was quite helpful, and an awful lot I learned, even being there, and what I did and so forth, that even that we owe a lot to the government on that, the way I look at it.
The war ended. You came back to Leominster. You met Tina. Now, did you meet Tina in Leominster? Is Tina from Leominster?
I met Tina in Leominster, and
your wife Tina.
Right.
And by the way, I must say, so I don't want to forget it, you are going to celebrate your 60th anniversary on October 6th.
Right.
You and Tina, so that's wonderful. That's an accomplishment. Well, that's wonderful. 60 years. Yeah. Wow. So God bless you both. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you met Tina and you got married. What year would that be? About 40?
We got married in 1945.
45. Right. and you immediately moved into this beautiful, big palatial mansion, right? Or
Cold water flat.
A cold water flat. Where?
Up on Union Street.
Up on Union Street.
Right.
Now, for people new to Leominster or young people who don't know, what's a cold water flat? That's exactly what
it's an apartment that you go into. There's absolutely no hot water, no facilities for hot water, and you did everything with the stove, heated up and so forth.
And a stove, a gas stove or a
no, the
kerosene?
stove actually was a kerosene stove.
Kerosene stove.
That would heat it up, right?
Yeah, with the oil barrel outside?
Right.
Yeah.
Carry it up in the...
Yeah.
Today, you often think of it, they carry it up with the glass gallon jugs. I think if anybody did that today, the fire department would...
that would be right, dangerous.
Yeah, right.
You're right. And just a little sidelight, I remember as a kid growing up on Central Street, one of my chores was, because we had the oil jug and the oil stove, the oil barrel downstairs. When I got old enough, I had to go down and fill the oil barrel and bring it up and put it on the stove. Yeah. It's how things have changed.
One of the other things, in other words, which is a little different on that, my father used to make 2 barrels of wine, and being the youngest, I would have to siphon it out of the barrel.
This is talking about wine now, not kerosene.
No, wine. And if I got a mouthful, I would be completely, it'd send me berserk. And I've never drank in my life, I guess, because of that.
Because of the wine. So that was a good lesson for you. That was a good experience for you. So now you and Tina were on, you said it was on what street?
Middle Street.
Middle Street.
From Middle to Union Street.
Union Street.
Yep.
But now we want to get Babe Pilecchia and Tina Pilecchia down to the, from there down to the south
end. Right.
So tell us, what was your introduction to the South, and how did the Pilecchia family, did your dad have a connection down there too, to the South End? How did you, tell us about that?
I needed a piece of property to build my ice cream place on.
So you had an idea, you had a dream of building an ice cream place.
Because I had an ice cream machine.
How'd you get the ice cream machine?
I went to an auction to buy some material there for our construction, and there's this brand new ice cream machine there for sale. And it was $1,000. And
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. But in comes this salesman from the Mills Ice Cream Company, and he wanted to buy the machine for me for $1,500.
Now, where was this taking place?
This was in Marlboro.
In Marlboro.
Right, at the auction. And at that time, my little brain said, if this thing is worth that much money, I'm going to see what it can do.
So you didn't take up his offer of $1,500.
No, I did not, no.
You said, if he wants it for $1,500, it must be...
So now I've got the ice cream machine, now I need a place for it, and that's when we built the area where the Babe's Ice Cream is. And the thing that the ice cream place is so designed that if the ice cream didn't go, but people in Leominster said I was crazy for building down in the woods, that it would be a house.
Because at that time, that section of Leominster was all mainly woods.
Yeah.
It was the outskirts of Leominster. It's not like today, which it's developed. It was the boondocks.
Exactly,
kind of.
yep.
Yeah, the sticks. It was out. There wasn't a lot there. Very nice section and everything, and a lot of woods and everything, and some development, but very little. So different from today. And so you had this ice cream machine. You needed a place to, and you thought enough ahead. So if the ice cream place fails, it can become a house.
Right.
Now this ice cream place, I'm going to hold this up for the viewing audience. There still is an ice cream stand there now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The area that we're talking about now, for people who don't know Leominster, it's down near the intersection of Litchfield Street and Route 12 Central Street. There's a Sunoco station. There's an ice cream stand there still. Mm-hmm. It's across from the former E.J. Maroney's.
Exactly.
The motel is still there, but this is what Babe's ice cream stand looked like. And what year would this be, Babe?
1950.
1950. That's a long time ago. It's over a half century ago. and in the sticks of Leominster, an ice cream stand, people thought you were, they
Probably
thought,
gone a little soft.
they thought you had gone a little soft, because who's ever going to go out to there? But it was a success. And I remember the cone, which was kind of an icon of a symbol. You had very modern ideas. Here's the ice cream stand, and I want to. Tell us something about, did the business catch on right away?
Well, surprisingly, on July 2nd, we were going to open up July 4th.
July 4th, 1950.
On July 2nd, a hot day like we've had recently, and this bus comes in, and one fellow gets out of the bus and he said, "We're monks from Providence, Rhode Island. Could we please have 28 glasses of water?" And of course, my wife looked at me, and immediately there was 28 sandwiches, 28 coffees, and 28 ice creams, and the bus went off. As the bus left one driveway, cars just came in. Unbelievably came in. Some of my friends, they said, "Babe, how can you be so lucky to get bus loads and you haven't even opened?" I said, "Well, I hope I don't get too many more like them, or I'll be closed before I start." And it just took off, and that was it.
And that was the start, and it grew from there. Did you buy your ice cream?
No, I made all my own ice cream with that machine.
Made your own ice cream
right.
with that machine. Tell us something about that. Where'd you get the milk? Where'd you get the...
Well, you buy the milk from, I got it at that time from Hood's.
Hood's?
And then the syrups and so forth, some different companies. It was all top-notch syrups that I used and so forth.
In a variety of flavors.
I used to have about 28 varieties of flavors.
28 flavors, which was a lot. Did you have pistachio? Because that's one of my
I had
favorite.
pistachio. Yeah.
I'm going to read. I'll just put this up to the camera for a minute. Not to. Maybe you can take a look. But you won't be able to read it. But I'm going to read some of the items off the menu and the contrast between the prices then and now. This is Babe's Drive-In and Motel. Babe's Drive-In and Motel, Route 12, Central Street, Leominster. And the telephone is LE 75437. And here are some of the prices. All carbonated soda, all the sodas, a dime, 10 cents. Milk, a dime. Coffee, a dime. Tea, a dime. Hot chocolate, a dime. All soups with crackers, 20 cents. Pie a la mode, a quarter. And then this is the menu for Friday's specials. Egg salad sandwich, a quarter. Tuna sandwich, tuna salad, 35 cents. One of the most expensive items on Friday's menu. Lobster salad sandwich, 45 cents. Fried egg, 20 cents. Sea dogs. What were sea dogs?
Sea dogs was something made of fish. It was like a hot dog. Like
for the Friday.
Some company made those and we put it on.
For the Friday menu.
It didn't go too well, but we had it.
French fries, half a pint, 20 cents. A pint, 40 cents. You could get French fries by the quart for 75 cents. So the contrast in prices.
Quite a difference, isn't it?
Quite a difference between then and now.
Even then, the big thing is on the girls. My girls, if they got a total of $1 a week tips, they were doing good. Because people just did not tip in those days.
The employees, the girls. Where did you get the people to work for you?
There was high school girls, some college girls, and plus my family. My sister-in-law, my wife would work also.
And you said that if they got, over the course of a week, if they made $1's worth of tips,
that'd be about it.
That would be about it. Why was that? Because it was...
Well, people just didn't tip in those days.
Not as they do today, and it was more of an ice cream stand instead of a... But was it a sit-down restaurant right from the beginning?
Sit-down also. We had both sit-down and window service. It would be nothing for us to sell 1,000 ice cream cones on a Sunday afternoon. There was 7 of us working.
Wow. So very, very busy
Besides
place.
all the other items. So it was quite successful
And you took advantage of the era of when, this would be in the 50s, when people were now, the war was over and cars were becoming a little more available, so people could take that Sunday drive and come out to Babe's down in the South End. But it didn't end with the ice cream stand. You had a carpet golf.
Right, miniature golf course.
Where'd you get that idea from? I mean,
Just felt that I had an area that I owned, the land that was vacant, and put it to work.
So miniature golf, which I had forgotten about. I'm sure I must have played down there, but that had escaped my memory. But then, and then the motel. How did that start? And let me, I'm going to get up for a moment, and I want to show the viewing audience. And so, this may be the first time on LATV Neighborhood Snapshot where you see the host collapse, and there'll be a big laugh from a person whose initials KM in the background. So I got to say, which way, Jack? I'm going to turn this way. This way. I'll turn this way, and I'm going to. Jack, should I hold this up or?
Whatever tickles your fancy.
Okay, I'm gonna. This is a beautiful photograph. It looks like it's taken at night when the sign was illuminated. This is Babe's ice cream stand.
Look in the window, the price of the ice cream cone.
I'll look in the window and the cones. I can read the sign. Cones 10 and 15 cents. 10 cents and 15 cents. My, how things have changed. Now. That stand is still there, but it's no longer Babe's. It's I don't know the current owners, but it's a great spot for an ice cream stand, and all started over a half a century ago.
Bob, if you flip it over, there's another photo on the back.
Okay, this is the motel. This is Babe's Motel at the time, right?
Right.
And it is now the Leominster Motel.
Well, it was Leominster. I named it Leominster Motel.
Leominster Motel.
We did an awful lot of commercial business, salesmen and so forth, and on their expense account, they'd come back and said, the office didn't like Babe's, if they staying at Babe's, so that's when we started the Leominster Motel.
Leominster Motel.
Right.
And Babe, I want to comment that I noticed this years ago. Jack, I'm going to put this back up here for a moment. I noticed years ago that the architecture of the stand and the motel and the building back, it was modernistic, modern for Leominster. How did that come about?
Well, my wife being an artist, in other words, she would kind of design things.
She had the influence of that, and it has stood well.
Yep.
But I did notice that as was growing up and driving down by that area, I say that building is different from the buildings around here. The one with the roof that sort of is canted up a little bit. Yeah, and that was a modern look to it. The motel, the ice cream stand, the carpet golf, did you get involved in any of the other? Now, Blocks, I know Blocks were run by, Blocks Incorporated was run by the Pellecchia family.
Right.
And it is no longer, what would be where Blocks Incorporated was? They were in 2 locations. Tell us something about that.
Well, the Miller Street location is being used now, followed by for storing supplies for winter sand and so forth.
So at the base of the terrace on on Miller Street, there was a company that made cement blocks. It was Blocks Incorporated, Pellecchia's. And you were involved with your brothers, and was your dad involved in that too? That came later though, right? The Blocks.
Well, my dad was involved in everything we did behind us. He wasn't actually in the thing, but he was,
And then on Route 12, near where the El Camino is now, and the Fall Brook goes under Route 12, where El Camino is, there was the yard for the yard for the
blocks. And
blocks. It was a big operation.
certainly was. We would make 8,000 blocks in one day, each day.
8,000 cement blocks in one
day, yeah.
each day.
All automated.
Everything was automated.
Yep.
I remember up on this is a real flash from the past. I remember up on near the railroad tracks on Lincoln Terrace there was a sign. It would be now behind where the St. Anna's School is,
Right.
up that area. Up on the hill, there was Blocks Incorporated. It was a big, there was a sign, and then the yard was down below. On Miller
Right.
Street. Used to take shortcuts through near that
That's right.
area. I'm picturing in my mind on Route 12 near the El Camino, the Blocks Incorporated yard, and I'm picturing a demonstration fallout shelter
Right.
that was there for years.
That
Now,
was the thing for at the time because of the war and the...
in that era, the Cold War, the
Cold War.
Soviet Union, the United States, the East and the West and so on, there was a danger and a worry about nuclear attack. So people were encouraged to build fallout shelters, and there was a demonstration one there.
Right.
And people used to buy a lot of blocks for those.
It was surprising that number of people that would come with a van or something like that, put the blocks and cover it so that the neighbors wouldn't know that they're putting a shelter in their cellar. It's surprising the number of people that did that. They didn't want anybody to know that they were buying these blocks to build a shelter.
So some of those shelters were built in
the houses.
in the houses, in
Right.
cellars.
Yeah.
Now, this is something I've learned new today, because I always used to think, never thought about it, I thought somebody was going to build one of those shelters, they would dig a hole in their backyard or someplace and build a shelter in there, but they were built...
A lot of them were built right in the cellars.
Right within the cellars. So that's something I've learned new today. I hadn't made that connection. Your interest in history, I'm going to stand up again. I'm going to get up again, and I'm going to show another visual. And it's a connection between your interest in history, because you're very much interested in history. You are one of the directors of the Historical Society. But there's a connection between that and the development, your influence in the South End. And I'm going to take the picture of the motel down, and I'm going to show this. I'll put it back up in a minute. I'm going to... This is a page from the Leominster Directory.
Right.
Now, I have found through working with the Historical Commission that these are so important. These show the streets and the people who lived on streets, and they go way, way back into the city's history. This one is a page from 1950, the Leominster Directory, and it shows the Central Street area. And these, I believe, are house numbers. And Central Street continued, and it starts with this house has a telephone, because the houses that had phones would be indicated by a bell, probably for the Bell Telephone Company. But I'm looking, and I see some of these have been highlighted, like there's Eugene Obie's garage, Crowley Motor Express Incorporated, John's Service Station, South End Market, El Patio Restaurant, Langen H.J. Farm Livestock, Parker W.E. Gasoline, I don't think Noack's Garage, maybe I said that one. Why are these highlighted, Babe?
Those were the only businesses in that area in 1950.
In 1950, when you started down there, the businesses were few and far between.
Exactly, right.
They were few and far between. And just before I I turn this over and show the contrast and your contribution, the results of your opening up that area, I see many, these bring to mind so many memories. When you look at these city directories, they're amazing historical resources. Amazing, amazing. I'm going to turn this. Now remember, there's maybe a half dozen or so, 7 or 8, 9 businesses of various sorts. And then you opened up that section of Leominster, and babe, what is this?
Those are the number of businesses that are in starting from the El Camino to the Sterling line.
So,
That's what's the number of businesses that are there now.
Now today.
Yep.
Route 12 businesses from the El Camino to the Sterling line, and look at how it's grown from half a dozen or so to all of these. The boondocks of Leominster. Before it was
That's the interesting
undeveloped,
part,
and now
that,
it's no longer the sticks. So many, and not only businesses have developed, but residences.
Right.
Residences. It's a residential area now.
Apartment
Housing
buildings
developments
there now
and apartments
and so forth, right?
Yes, and some that are in the works that are.
Now, I'm not responsible for all those,
No,
but evidently they felt that the area would take, would support their businesses.
And it certainly has. It certainly has, and it had to start. And it only, well, I say only, but it's been a half century, over a half century. Babe, you've done so many things for Leominster, and you're still doing so many things for Leominster. You and Tina. Tell us something about some of the organizations and other work now that you're retired, right? You're retired, but you're not. I mean, you're still active. You don't.
Well, I'm only active in the Historical Society, but I did spend 22 years at the hospital, and I really felt I put a lot of time down there, and it certainly was all charity.
Doing what at the hospital, Leominster?
Well, I started off as the operator and went up to the executive board and chairman of the building committee. But whatever was necessary to do, and I felt that that's the least I could do for Leominster, because I was always conscious of cost of different things and so forth.
And you used your experience
exactly.
in business and in construction and so on.
And I would spend anywhere from an hour a week up until sometimes 22, 25 hours a week on
volunteer
work
at the hospital.
Because I really believed in it and so forth, that's what I could do. And then way back, I was also director of the Red Cross. And so that I'd like to, of course, my wife and I have done a lot for charity. We both believe in it.
So you gave back, and you're still giving back to the city. Near the conclusion, to conclude this interview, and really you have pretty much said it. You are thankful.
Exactly.
You're thankful.
Exactly.
Tell us, tell us what Leominster. Tell us about.
Well, we started off with absolute nothing, and what I have today is from the support from the people of Leominster, as well as doing different things which are the city that allow you to do certain things and so forth. That it's been all positive all the way through. Yep. And the one thing I do is that people know me for this here, that I always have a ruler in my pocket.
You know what? All right. When I was thinking about this interview, because I've met you before, and I'd always see you had that, and I said, should I ask him about that or not? Now I'm going to find out. Yes, you always carry that. What's the story?
I believe in the golden rule.
The golden rule.
And that's it, in other words, that to be fair and honest and helpful to people that need it.
That is wonderful. And that is, so that the audience knows what it is, that's
A regular 6-foot ruler.
6-foot ruler.
Kind of worn out.
And you're never without it.
Nope,
I see you in
always-
church. I think I see you in church with that.
In fact, in my daughter's wedding, I took a picture of the husband and wife around with the ruler, which surprised them.
And the idea, wonderful, the golden rule.
Yep.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Exactly.
Treat others the way you want to be treated. That's
Exactly.
wonderful, babe. And you solved a question that I kind of had in mind about that ruler all the time.
Yep. Of course, I use it for my business, too.
Well, babe, I want to express my thanks to you. This has been an enjoyable interview. And I want to thank you very, very much. It's
You're
been
welcome.
an honor for you to come here and share your experiences about your contributions growing up in Leominster, your contributions to the South End and to all of Leominster, the citizens of Leominster. We thank you very much. Your service, we have to make note of that, and we thank all veterans, because I wouldn't be sitting here, and we wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for guys like you. Many, generations of them who have won our freedom, and that is happening even today. You did very well for the son of an immigrant. As we are, as everybody in America except the Native American Indians are. So we thank you very, very, very much.
You're welcome.
Babe.
Yeah. My
And
pleasure.
as always, I want to thank the folks at the LA TV studio, Kyle Pimerini, Jack Sully, Kevin Moran, all the folks that make Neighborhood Snapshot possible. And I want to thank as always, the viewing audience of Neighborhood Snapshot. Thank you very much.